You're pressed against the rough stone wall of a narrow close in medieval Edinburgh, listening for the sound that will let you know it's safe to sleep. The city is built on a volcanic ridge, forcing everyone to live vertically in towering tenements that trap sound like echo chambers. All day the noise has been overwhelming, shouting, clattering, the constant din of thousands of people crammed together. Your body aches from the tension of it all. Then you hear it, the deep metallic clang of the city gates locking for the night. That sound changes everything, transforming your crowded, chaotic world into something surprisingly peaceful. This same rhythm of overwhelming day and restful night has played out here across centuries, from medieval times through Georgian expansion to the industrial age. The stone beneath your feet holds all these stories. Before we settle in, if you enjoy these relaxing journeys into the past, like the video and subscribe for more quiet history evenings. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now let's get comfortable and ease into tonight's journey. You step through the narrow entrance of a medieval close and immediately feel the ground beneath your feet. This isn't ordinary earth or wooden planks. Your boots rest on volcanic rock that erupted from deep underground millions of years ago, then cooled into the foundation that would shape how an entire city lived and slept. The ridge beneath Edinburgh forced everyone to build upward instead of outward. When you look up, stone walls rise like cliffs on both sides, disappearing into shadows far above your head. The volcanic foundation left no choice but vertical living. Families stacked themselves floor upon floor, creating towers of humanity that seem to scrape the Scottish sky. Your neck aches as you crane it back to count the stories above you. 6 floors, 7 floors, sometimes more. Each window represents another family, another life pressed against the stone walls that you're about to climb. Your hand finds the wall for balance as you begin the winding ascent. The stone feels different from anything you know today. This volcanic rock holds cold like a memory, keeping the chill even when the summer sun beats down on the streets. The texture under your palm is rough and pitted, worn smooth in some places by countless hands, seeking the same steadiness you need now. Each step echoes off surfaces that have absorbed centuries of footsteps, conversations, arguments, and whispered prayers. The stairway curves as it climbs, following the natural shape of the ridge below. You pass doorway after doorway, each one opening into rooms where entire families shared spaces no bigger than modern closets. Behind these thick stone walls, people ate, worked, loved and raised children in vertical neighbourhoods, where privacy meant hanging a cloth across a corner. The weight of all those floors above creates a strange feeling. You're held, protected, yet also compressed into this narrow world where the sky feels impossibly far away. Children's voices drift down from windows high overhead, their laughter bouncing off the stone walls that form their playground. A mother calls to her child to come inside for supper, her voice carrying clearly in the enclosed space. This is what home meant in medieval Edinburgh, sharing not just walls but air, sound, and the constant presence of neighbours above, below, and beside you. The ridge forced intimacy on everyone who lived here. You pause on a landing to catch your breath, and the stone wall feels solid against your back. The volcanic rock that seemed harsh during your climb now offers steadiness. This foundation has held firm for centuries, supporting the weight of countless families, countless stories, countless nights of rest. The walls that press close during the day's business become something different as evening approaches. What felt confining in daylight transforms into protection when darkness falls. Through a narrow window, you glimpse the world beyond these walls. The ridge drops away steeply on both sides, showing you how precarious life would be without these thick stone walls. The volcanic foundation that forced vertical living also created a natural fortress. These walls don't just hold up buildings, they hold up a way of life where neighbours know each other's voices, where children play in stone corridors, where the rhythm of daily life echoes off surfaces that remember everything. The weight of the floors above you becomes comforting as you near your destination. Each level represents another family finding shelter, another group of people who chose to build upward rather than give up on this rocky ridge. The stone that seemed cold when you first touched it now feels like the backbone of a community. These walls have cradled generations of families who found ways to thrive in vertical neighbourhoods carved from volcanic rock. Your legs ache from the climb, but you understand something now about the people who called these closes home. They didn't just live with the stone, they lived because of it. The volcanic ridge that forced them upward also gave them a foundation strong enough to support their towering homes. The walls that pressed close also kept them safe. The weight that felt overwhelming during busy daylight hours becomes a blanket of security as evening settles over the city. As you reach your floor and turn toward home, the stone walls seem different than they did moments ago. The rough texture that challenged your grip now guides you safely to your door. The cold that made you shiver now offers relief from the day's heat and stress. The weight that seemed oppressive now feels protective, like being wrapped in something ancient and strong. You run your hand once more along the volcanic stone, feeling how it connects you to the earth far below and the sky far above. This ridge shaped not just buildings but lives, creating a community where people lived closer to each other than anywhere else in Scotland. The same stone that trapped you during the day's chaos becomes your fortress as night approaches. These walls that witnessed centuries of daily struggles now prepare to guard your rest. The volcanic foundation still shapes how Edinburgh sleeps. In modern apartments built on the same ridge, in restored tenements where families still climb stone stairs, in quiet closes where tourists now walk, where medieval residents once lived. The stone walls that have cradled tired bodies for 1,000 years continue their ancient work. They hold the weight, they provide the shelter, they transform from prison to sanctuary with each setting sun, proving that home isn't just a place, but also a feeling that comes when stone walls finally offer rest instead of confinement. But first you must survive the day trapped within them. The sound strikes you the moment you step deeper into the close. Your ears register something unsettling about this narrow space. Every footstep on the cobblestones seems unnaturally loud. Every voice carries much farther than it should. The high stone walls create a tunnel effect, and within seconds you understand why residents felt imprisoned by noise during daylight hours. A cart rumbles past, its wooden wheels clattering against uneven stones. The sound doesn't fade as the cart moves away. Instead, it bounces off the walls beside you, above you, echoing endlessly until you can't locate the actual cart anymore. The noise fills the entire space between towering tenements, creating a wall of sound that presses against your chest. Your shoulders tense automatically as your body shields itself from the overwhelming din. The walls rise like cliffs on both sides, sometimes so close you could stretch your arms and touch both surfaces. These narrow spaces trap every sound that enters and multiply it until the original noise becomes something far more intense. A child's laugh from high above bounces down the stone surfaces, arriving as overlapping echoes that make locating the actual child impossible. The laughter seems to come from everywhere at once. Two merchants argue about wool prices, their voices growing louder as they compete with their own echoes. What starts as a normal conversation quickly becomes shouting, not from anger, but because they can barely hear each other over their voices bouncing back from stone walls. You find yourself caught between them, their words mixing and overlapping until you can't follow either side of the discussion. Even whispers carry in these spaces. A woman leans close to her friend to share private news, but you hear every word clearly from 20 feet away. The closed design makes privacy impossible. Personal conversations become public announcements. Quiet moments disappear completely during busy daylight hours when hundreds of people move through these stone corridors, each adding their voice to the growing chorus. The acoustics work so perfectly that conversations from 3 floors up sound like they're happening beside your ear. A mother calls her children inside for their meal. Her voice travels down the stone walls with such clarity that you automatically look around for the children, expecting to see them nearby. But they're somewhere high above, invisible behind dozens of windows that line the close like watching eyes. Your body responds to the constant noise. Your jaw clenches without you realizing it. Your hands form fists at your sides. Your breathing becomes shallow as you try to process competing sounds around you. The stone walls that seemed protective when you entered now feel like they're closing in, trapping you inside an echo chamber where every sound becomes a physical presence pressing against your tired mind. A blacksmith's hammer rings against metal somewhere nearby, each strike multiplied by stone surfaces until it sounds like a dozen hammers working at once. The rhythmic clanging follows you deeper into the close, never fading, always bouncing off new surfaces to create fresh echoes. Escaping one sound only means walking toward another that's equally amplified and equally inescapable. Children play in the narrow space, their games creating constant streams of running feet, bouncing balls, and excited shouts. But in these acoustic chambers, their play sounds like chaos. Every footstep echoes multiple times. Every shout returns altered and distorted. What should be the pleasant sounds of children at play becomes another layer of overwhelming noise that makes your head ache and your nerves feel stretched thin. The density of sound matches the density of people. Thousands of residents live packed into these vertical neighbourhoods where stone walls force everyone to share not just space, but every sound they make. Your ears ring from the constant barrage of voices, footsteps, cartwheels, work sounds, and domestic noises, all mixed together and amplified beyond what any settlement was meant to endure. You press against the cold stone wall, seeking relief from the acoustic assault. But the wall itself seems to vibrate with captured sound. The volcanic rock holds every noise that touches it, creating a surface that thrums with accumulated din from countless daily activities. Even touching the wall connects you more directly to the overwhelming soundscape that defines life in these medieval closes. A street vendor announces his wares, his voice trained to cut through constant noise. But in this echo chamber, his calls multiply and overlap with themselves, creating a confusing jumble of the same words arriving at different times. You can't tell what he's actually selling because his announcement has become a layered chorus of competing versions, each one slightly out of sync with the others. As the day progresses and more people fill the closes, the sound level grows beyond bearing. Every new voice adds to the chaos. Every additional footstep contributes to the overwhelming clatter. Your body stays tense, alert, defensive against the constant acoustic pressure that makes rest impossible and peace unthinkable during these long daylight hours. The stone walls that amplify every sound during the day will soon offer something completely different. When evening comes and the close is finally empty, these same surfaces that created today's acoustic prison will transform into guardians of blessed silence. But first you must endure more than just the overwhelming noise that fills these narrow spaces. Your lungs fill with air that carries more than oxygen. The mixture of scents hangs in the narrow space like an invisible curtain, heavy and dense with odours that seem to press against your face and settle into your clothes. Your nose wrinkles automatically as you encounter the distinctive smell of medieval Edinburgh, a combination so intense it makes you understand why people hurried through these spaces during daylight hours. Coal smoke drifts down from countless hearths high above, creating a grey haze that burns your eyes and coats your throat. Every family needs fire for cooking and warmth, and every fire sends its smoke into these narrow channels between the towering stone buildings. The acrid smell mixes with other scents, creating something much stronger than any single odour. You can taste the coal dust on your lips, feel it settling on your skin like a fine layer of grit that follows you wherever you go. The sour smell of human waste mingles with the coal smoke, a reminder of daily necessities in a city without modern plumbing. Windows far above occasionally open to release the contents of chamber pots, and the narrow closes trap these odours close to the ground where people walk and work. The smell seems to rise from the cobblestones themselves, absorbed into the stone over years of daily life. Your stomach tightens as you breathe in this mixture that defines the daylight hours in these cramped quarters. Cooking fires add their own layer to the atmospheric mix. The smell of burning wood mingles with the coal smoke, while the grease from countless meals creates a thick, oily scent that seems to touch everything around it. Stale cooking odours drift from windows and doorways, mixing fish, meat, and vegetable smells into something that might have been appetizing hours ago, but now contributes to the overwhelming burden on your senses. You notice how these smells seem to gather closer in the narrow spaces with nowhere to escape in the windless closes. The high stone walls block any breeze that might carry the odours away, creating stagnant pockets of air that hold every scent like a trap. The volcanic rock walls absorb these smells during the day, becoming saturated with the mixed odours of daily life. Even the stones themselves seem to breathe out the accumulated scents of generations. The smell of unwashed bodies adds another layer to the complex mixture. Water is precious, and bathing is rare, especially during the busy daylight hours when everyone focuses on work and survival. The close quarters mean you share these personal scents with dozens of neighbours, their daily struggles written in the air around you. Your own clothes begin to absorb these odours, carrying the day's unpleasant reminders with you as you climb toward home. Rotting food scraps linger in corners where the sun never reaches, trapped by the towering stone walls that block light from the narrow spaces. The smell of decay mixes with everything else, creating pockets of particularly intense odour that make you hold your breath as you pass. These forgotten scraps of daily life contribute their own sour notes to the symphony of scents that defines these medieval streets. Even your hair seems to capture the smells, holding them close to your face where you can't escape their constant presence. The mixture follows you like an unwelcome companion, a reminder of the challenges that come with living so closely packed together in these vertical neighbourhoods. Your clothes become carriers of the day's sensory assault, making it impossible to find relief even when you step away from the worst areas. The intensity builds as the day progresses and more people fill the closes with their daily activities. Each new person adds their own scents to the mixture. Every cooking fire contributes more smoke. Every open window releases new odours into the trapped air between the stone walls. Your body starts to feel surrounded by these smells, as if they're seeping through your skin and becoming part of you. Your throat feels dry from breathing through your mouth, trying to minimize contact with the overwhelming mixture of odours. But even this strategy offers limited relief in spaces where the air itself seems thick with accumulated scents. The stone walls that seemed protective when you first entered now feel like barriers that prevent any escape from this sensory overload that makes the day feel longer and more challenging. The narrow spaces amplify everything, including the smells. What might be merely unpleasant in an open area becomes overwhelming when trapped between walls that rise like cliffs on both sides. The odours bounce off the stone surfaces just like the sounds do, creating layers of scent that build on each other until breathing becomes a conscious effort to avoid the worst of what surrounds you. You long for fresh air, for the clean scent of rain, or the simple smell of stone without all these daily additions. The mixture that defines daylight in this closes makes you appreciate the simple pleasure of clean air, something you never think about until it's gone. Your body craves relief from this constant assault on your senses, making you understand why evening brings such a welcome change to these narrow spaces. But you know that change is coming. As shadows begin to lengthen and the day's activities slow down, the evening air will start to move differently through these stone channels. The same walls that trap today's overwhelming odours will soon become pathways for night breezes that carry the clean scent of stone and sky. The cool air will gradually push away the day's accumulated smells, replacing them with the fresh promise of rest and relief. Your shoulders stay tense as you navigate these aromatic challenges, your body alert to every new scent that might signal danger or discomfort ahead. The constant vigilance required just to breathe comfortably adds another layer of stress to daily life in these medieval closes, making you understand why people looked forward so eagerly to evening's arrival and the blessed relief it would bring. The sound strikes you from above without warning. "Gardyloo!" the cry echoes down through the narrow close with startling clarity, and your body reacts before your mind fully processes what's happening. You press yourself against the cold stone wall as everyone around you moves with practiced urgency. This isn't panic. This is a daily ritual that every person in medieval Edinburgh knows by heart. Your eyes dart upward, scanning the dozens of windows that line the stone walls, like watching eyes. Somewhere up there, someone is about to empty their chamber pot. The cry comes from old French words that mean, "Beware of the water," though what's coming down isn't water at all. Your heart quickens as you try to guess which window poses the threat. Other people around you flatten themselves against doorways and press into whatever shallow shelter the stone walls provide. This moment creates a strange dance that happens multiple times each day throughout these vertical neighbourhoods. Merchants abandon their conversations mid-sentence. Children stop their games and look for cover. Women carrying baskets shift their loads protectively. Everyone shares the same sudden tension, the same urgent need to avoid what's about to fall from somewhere in the maze of windows above. The close becomes a stage where dozens of people perform the same careful choreography of survival. Your shoulders tense as you scan the windows more desperately. The buildings rise so high that counting the floors makes your neck ache. 10 stories, 12 stories, sometimes reaching 14 floors that seem to scrape the Scottish sky. These towering tenements stand among the world's tallest buildings of their age, and any one of those countless windows could be the source of danger. The narrow space that already feels confining now feels like a trap. The same stone walls that create the echoing chambers for sound also create perfect targets for anything dropped or thrown from above. The cry represents everything overwhelming about daylight in medieval Edinburgh. Constant vigilance is required just to walk the streets safely. The shared discomfort of living so closely packed together that privacy becomes impossible. The lack of peace when every moment requires alertness to potential dangers from above, around you, or underfoot. Your body stays ready to move, muscles coiled with the tension of never knowing when the next threat might appear. You hold your breath and listen for the telltale sound of liquid hitting stone. The narrow closet amplifies every noise, so you'll hear the splash clearly when it comes. Your feet feel rooted to the cobblestones as you wait, hoping desperately that whatever falls will land nowhere near you. The volcanic stone beneath your feet has absorbed countless such deposits over the years, creating permanent stains and lingering odours that mark these daily occurrences. This ritual happened throughout the day, keeping everyone on edge and making the streets feel unsafe and unpredictable. You never knew when the cry would come or from which window the contents would fall. The warning gave you precious seconds to find shelter, but those seconds stretched like hours as you stood pressed against the stone wall, waiting for the danger to pass. Each Gardy-Lou cry reminded you that safety was temporary, and peace was a luxury reserved for other times and places. The close feels smaller during these moments of shared vulnerability. The high walls that normally provide shelter now feel like the sides of a funnel, concentrating everything that falls from above into the narrow space where you stand. Your breathing becomes shallow as you realise how little control you have over your own safety in these crowded vertical neighbourhoods. The stone walls that seemed protective minutes ago now feel like barriers that prevent escape. Other pedestrians share your tension, their faces showing the same mixture of alertness and resignation. This is simply part of daily life in these medieval closes. Children learn to listen for the cry as soon as they're old enough to walk the streets. Adults develop the reflexes needed to find shelter quickly. Everyone carries the constant stress of knowing that ordinary activities like walking to market or visiting neighbours require constant vigilance against dangers from above. The waste that eventually falls creates more than just a mess on the cobblestones. It adds to the overwhelming mixture of smells that define these narrow spaces during daylight hours. The sour odours that you've been breathing all day gain fresh contributions from these regular deposits. Your clothes, already absorbing the coal smoke and cooking smells that fill the clothes, now face the additional challenge of avoiding contamination from these aerial hazards. You feel the tension spreading through your entire body as the moments stretch on. Your jaw clenches, your hands form fists at your sides, your back stays pressed firmly against the stone wall, as if you could somehow merge with its solid protection. The constant stress of these daily encounters takes a toll that goes beyond the immediate moments of danger. Your body holds this tension long after each crisis passes, creating a persistent state of alertness that makes true relaxation impossible during daylight hours. The city's leaders eventually tried to bring order to this chaos. The Nastiness Act of 1749 attempted to regulate waste disposal, dictating that waste could only be thrown from windows between 10 at night and 7 in the morning. The act also required the warning cry, though by then the French garde l'eau had evolved into the familiar gardez-lou that echoes through these stone corridors. This daily stress makes evening's arrival feel precious beyond measure. As shadows lengthen and the busy day begins to wind down, the frequency of gardez-lou cries gradually decreases. Families retreat indoors for their evening meals. The windows that posed threats throughout the day grow quiet. The ritual that kept everyone on edge begins to fade with the dying light, and your body starts to recognize that something different approaches with the gathering dusk. The sound you've been waiting for finally comes. Deep in the gathering dusk, the massive iron gates at Netherbow Port begin their evening ritual. These aren't ordinary doors. They're thick, heavy barriers that separate Edinburgh's heart from the world beyond. 2 round towers stand guard on either side, their stone walls rising like protective sentinels. The gates themselves are built to last, forged from iron that can withstand attacks and weather. When they move, you feel their weight in the very air around you. The sound begins as metal scrapes against stone. The hinges groan under the massive weight of the iron gates as they start to swing closed. This sound is different from anything you've heard during the chaotic day. Where the daylight hours brought sharp, jarring noises that bounced off stone walls and overwhelmed your senses, this sound is deep and purposeful. It resonates through your chest, reaching parts of you that the day's chaos couldn't touch. The heavy metallic clang echoes off the stone walls of the closes and tenements around you. The sound travels through the narrow spaces where you've spent your day dodging waste from windows and covering your ears against overwhelming noise. But now, those same stone walls that trap the day's unpleasant sounds carry something different. This is the sound of protection, the sound of safety, the sound that announces to everyone within the city walls that the dangerous outside world has been locked away for the night. You feel your breathing slow as the sound fades into the stone corridors. Your shoulders, which have been tensed against the day's constant threats, begin to drop slightly. Your hands, which formed fists during the gardez-lou cries and clenched against the overwhelming smells, start to relax. This single sound creates a physical change in your body that hours of daylight chaos couldn't achieve. Your body instinctively recognizes this signal that it's finally safe to relax. The gates separate more than just the inside from the outside. They create a boundary between day and night, between chaos and calm, between public stress and private peace. During the daylight hours, the open gates meant constant movement, merchants entering with goods, Travellers bringing news from other cities, strangers whose intentions you couldn't know. The open gates meant vigilance, uncertainty, and the need to stay alert to dangers that might enter your protected space. Other residents pause in their evening routines to listen for this sound. A woman drawing water from a well stops her work. A man carrying bread from the baker tilts his head toward the echo. Children playing in the narrow closes grow quiet for a moment. This is a shared experience that unites the entire community. Everyone within Edinburgh's walls finds the same relief in this nightly ritual. Everyone recognises the same signal that the day's struggles have ended. You notice how the sound affects the very atmosphere around you. The narrow closes that amplified every unpleasant noise during the day now carry this protective sound with clarity and purpose. The stone walls that trapped coal smoke and waste odours now channel the metallic clang that means safety. The vertical neighbourhoods that felt like prisons during the overwhelming daylight hours transform into fortress communities where rest becomes possible. The psychological shift this simple sound creates reaches deeper than conscious thought. Your nervous system, which has been on high alert for hours, begins to recognise safety signals. The constant scanning for threats from windows above can slow down. The careful breathing through your mouth to avoid overwhelming smells can ease. The tension in your muscles that prepared you to dodge falling waste or seek shelter from noise can finally begin to release. This transformation happens throughout the old town as the sound of the closing gates reaches every corner of the medieval city. In the highest floors of the towering tenements, families hear the protective clang and know their children can sleep safely. In the narrow closes where sound echoes endlessly, the metallic resonance replaces the chaos of voices and cartwheels with something steady and reassuring. In the underground vaults where the city's poorest find shelter, the distant sound of the gates means even they are included in Edinburgh's protective embrace. The same stone walls that trapped you during the day's overwhelming sensations become protective barriers as the gates swing shut. The volcanic rock that absorbed every unpleasant smell and amplified every jarring sound now forms the boundaries of a sanctuary. The walls that pressed close during the crowded, chaotic daylight hours now create a safe space where sleep becomes not just possible, but protected. With the gates locked, you understand that Edinburgh has transformed from a place where you survive to a place where you rest. The narrow closes that challenged you with their acoustic chaos now offer quiet corridors leading to home. The stone walls that held the day's overwhelming mixture of sounds and smells now guard against the night's potential dangers. The vertical neighbourhoods that felt confining during the busy day now provide security from anything that might threaten the darkness. These medieval gates would eventually disappear. The Netherbow port was demolished in 1764 when it became an obstruction to traffic, marking the city's transition from medieval fortress to modern urban centre. But for centuries, this nightly ritual connected every person in Edinburgh, all finding the same relief in the sound of safety. The metallic clang that echoes through the stone corridors reaches rich and poor alike. Everyone within the walls shares this moment of transition from the day's survival to the night's sanctuary. The sound that transforms your world also transforms theirs, proving that some experiences cross all boundaries when safety becomes the common need that unites an entire community. As the last echo fades into the stone walls, you know that other sounds will soon follow to complete this transformation from chaos to peace. The night watch begins his rounds as the heavy iron gates swing shut. His presence transforms the quiet streets from empty to protected. Where moments ago the closes felt abandoned and potentially dangerous, his footsteps announce that someone is awake, alert, and keeping guard while you rest. The same stone corridors that trapped the day's chaos now carry the steady rhythm of his boots on cobblestones. After a day of overwhelming sensory assault, you need to know that someone is keeping watch while you sleep. The narrow closes that amplified every unpleasant sound during daylight hours now carry his purposeful footsteps with clarity and comfort. Each step echoes off the volcanic stone walls that have absorbed your day's stress and anxiety, but these echoes feel different from the chaotic noise that overwhelmed you hours earlier. These sounds have purpose. They have meaning. They speak of protection rather than chaos. His boots create a steady rhythm on the stone streets, a heartbeat in the darkness. The heavy leather soles strike the cobblestones with reliable timing, creating a pattern your tired mind can follow towards sleep. Where the day brought random, jarring noises that kept your body tense and alert, the night watch provides something completely different. His footsteps follow predictable paths through familiar streets, offering the kind of steady rhythm that helps your nervous system finally relax. You find yourself timing your breathing to match his footsteps. Your chest rises and falls as his boots strike the stone. Your heartbeat gradually sinks with his steady pace. The same acoustic properties that made the closes unbearable during the day now work in your favour, carrying his protective presence to every corner of the medieval city. The watchman's occasional call drifts through your window. All's well. His voice carries the same clarity that brought you the Gare-de-Lou warnings during the dangerous daylight hours. But this voice brings comfort instead of alarm. It's a human sound in the night that says you're not alone in the darkness. Someone is awake, someone is watching, someone cares enough to walk these stone corridors while you rest. His call echoes off the same walls that trapped the day's overwhelming mixture of sounds and smells. The volcanic stone that absorbed coal smoke and amplified arguments now carries his reassuring words through every narrow close and up every winding stair. All's well, the phrase reaches families huddled in tiny rooms high above the streets. It reaches the poor, sheltering in underground vaults. It reaches everyone who needs to hear that Edinburgh's night offers protection rather than danger. This is the opposite of the day's chaotic noise, where random sounds crashed against your senses without warning or meaning. The night watch provides sounds that are purposeful, protective, and infinitely calming. His presence fills the space between the locked gates and your sleeping body with something you couldn't find during the overwhelming daylight hours. Peace, security, the promise that someone stronger and more alert than you will handle whatever dangers the darkness might bring. The night watch's presence means you can finally let go of the day's defensive vigilance. You no longer need to scan windows for potential threats. You no longer need to hold your breath against overwhelming smells. You no longer need to tense your muscles against jarring sounds. His boots on the cobblestones tell you that someone else is handling the night's responsibilities. Your job now is simply to rest. His steady pace continues through the hours of darkness, a constant reminder that Edinburgh's night offers protection rather than abandonment. The same closes that felt like prisons during the chaotic day become corridors of safety under his watch. The narrow spaces that trapped unpleasant sights, sounds, and smells during daylight hours now channel his protective presence to every resident who needs the comfort of knowing they're not alone. The night watch's sounds become your lullaby, proof that the stone walls now shelter you instead of trapping you. His voice replaces the jarring cries and arguments with words that soothe rather than alarm. His presence transforms Edinburgh from a place where you struggle to survive into a place where you can safely rest. The same city that overwhelmed you during daylight now cradles you safely through the dark hours. The volcanic stone that seemed harsh and cold during the day's trials now forms the foundation of a sanctuary guarded by someone who walks the night so you don't have to. The Night Watch's steady rhythm proves that even in medieval Edinburgh's most challenging spaces, human care and protection could transform overwhelming chaos into peaceful rest. As his footsteps fade into the distance and return on his regular rounds, you feel your body finally beginning to release the day's accumulated tension. The watchman's presence has created something you desperately needed after hours of sensory overload. His boots on stone have replaced the day's jarring sounds with something your tired mind can use to guide itself towards sleep. But even more remarkable than his comforting presence is what happens when his footsteps finally fade completely into the night. The profound quiet that follows creates something your body recognizes as healing. Your ears almost strain to find something to hear in these same stone corridors that trapped you in acoustic chaos during the day. The silence feels so complete that it seems like a physical presence wrapping around your exhausted frame. After hours of noise that bounced off volcanic walls and assaulted your senses, this stillness feels almost impossible. The closes that amplified every voice, every footstep, every cartwheel, during daylight hours now hold a quiet so deep you can hear your own heartbeat. The same stone walls that created perfect echo chambers for the day's chaos now seem to absorb sound instead of reflecting it. The narrow spaces that trapped noise and multiplied it beyond bearing have transformed into something completely different. They've become chambers of peace that cradle your senses with gentle care. You realize your shoulders are finally relaxing. The tension you've been carrying since the first gardy-loo cry of the morning begins to release from muscles you didn't know were clenched. Your jaw, which tightened against the constant barrage of amplified voices and clattering wheels, starts to soften. The defensive posture your body maintained throughout the chaotic daylight hours slowly melts away as the silence works its way through your frame. Your breathing deepens as you adjust to this new acoustic world. The shallow, careful breaths you took to avoid the worst smells of the day give way to slower, fuller breaths that reach deeper into your chest. Even your heartbeat seems loud in this stillness. The sound of air moving in and out of your lungs becomes noticeable in ways it never was during the day's din. Your body begins to remember what peace feels like. The silence feels almost sacred after the chaos you endured. Like a gift that Edinburgh gives to those who survived its daylight challenges. The same city that assaulted your senses for hours now offers something precious in return. This quiet doesn't feel empty or abandoned. It feels full of rest, full of promise, full of the healing your nervous system desperately needs after the day's sensory assault. You notice how the absence of sound creates space for your thoughts to settle. During the day, the constant noise prevented any kind of mental quiet. Your mind stayed alert, defensive, processing threats and discomforts without pause. Now, in this profound stillness, your thoughts can finally slow down. The worried racing of your mind during the chaotic daylight hours gives way to something gentler and more peaceful. The stone walls that seem to press against you during the day's noise now feel protective rather than confining. The volcanic rock that absorbed and amplified every unpleasant sound now seems to guard this precious silence. The narrow spaces that trapped you in acoustic chaos have become corridors of peace where your senses can finally find relief from the day's constant assault. This quiet reaches every corner of Edinburgh's medieval heart. In the highest floors of the towering tenements, families rest in the same profound silence that surrounds you. In the narrow closes where sound bounced endlessly during daylight, the stillness now offers healing to anyone who needs it. In the underground vaults where the city's poorest seek shelter, this same gift of silence provides relief from the sensory burden that defines daily life in these crowded spaces. Your body begins to understand that this silence is medicine for your senses. The constant tension that kept you alert to threats from above, around, and below starts to fade. Your nervous system, which stayed on high alert throughout the day's chaos, begins to recognize safety in this profound quiet. The healing power of this dramatic contrast becomes clear as your body responds to the absence of everything that made the daylight hours so challenging. The same environment that wounded you during the day now offers healing, depending on the hour. The stone walls that trapped unbearable noise now cradle blessed silence. The narrow spaces that felt like prisons during the chaos now feel like sanctuaries where peace is possible. The acoustic properties that worked against you during daylight now work in your favour, creating chambers of quiet that reach every soul within Edinburgh's walls. You understand that Edinburgh's night doesn't just follow its day, it heals from it. The silence becomes an active force that repairs the damage done by hours of sensory overload. Your body uses this quiet to release the tension, stress, and defensive alertness that kept you alive during the chaotic daylight hours. The peaceful darkness offers something the chaotic daylight couldn't provide. True rest for your mind and body. This profound stillness proves that the same stone walls can serve completely different purposes depending on when you encounter them. What trapped you during the day now protects you during the night. What overwhelmed you during busy hours now soothes you during quiet ones. The volcanic rock that seemed harsh and unforgiving during the day's trials now feels gentle and caring as it guards your rest. In this healing silence, you realize that Edinburgh has given you exactly what you needed most. After surviving the day's acoustic assault, the absence of sound feels like the most precious gift imaginable. Your body uses this quiet to remember what peace feels like. Your senses use this stillness to heal from the day's constant challenges. The silence becomes medicine that only this dramatic contrast between day and night could provide. The same closes that challenged you with unbearable noise during daylight hours now offers the profound quiet your senses need to heal. As this medicinal silence settles deeper into your bones, you become aware of other sensations that the day's chaos had hidden from your notice. Your shoulder touches the volcanic rock that forms the wall of your narrow room, and the coolness flows through the thin fabric of your night clothes. During the overwhelming daylight hours, This same coldness felt harsh and unwelcoming, adding to every other misery the day brought. But now, as darkness settles over Edinburgh's medieval closes, the stone's chill offers something completely different. The same cold stone that made the morning feel harsh now provides a steady, grounding presence as you drift towards sleep. Your overheated body, stressed from hours of dodging Gardaloo cries and breathing coal smoke, finds relief in this coolness. The temperature that seemed cruel during the day's chaos now helps calm your flushed skin and racing pulse. Your palm rests flat against the wall, and the stone draws away the heat that built up from tension, anxiety, and the press of too many bodies in too little space. You rest your hand against the wall and feel its solid permanence, a reminder that you're protected by something ancient and strong. The volcanic rock beneath your palm has stood here for centuries, weathering storms, conflicts, and countless daily struggles. This stone witnessed the Roman invasions, the building of the first settlements, and the growth of the medieval city around it. Your fingers trace the rough texture that tells stories of time, weather, and the hands of countless other people who found the same comfort in these walls. The stone's weight, which seemed oppressive during the day's chaos, now feels like a protective embrace holding you safe. Above you, below you, around you, tons of volcanic rock form a fortress that has sheltered families for generations. The massive weight that felt crushing during the overwhelming daylight hours now feels like security. These thick walls can withstand anything the night might bring. They've protected residents through wars, plagues, and centuries of Scottish weather. The dampness that made morning feel unwelcome now carries the fresh scent of night air and rain. Instead of the stale moisture that seemed to trap the day's unpleasant odours, the evening dampness brings clean smells from the world beyond these narrow closes. The stone breathes differently at night, releasing the fresh coolness of rain and mist instead of holding the heat and odours of crowded daily life. This transformation shows how physical discomfort can become comfort depending on the time and circumstances that surround it. The same stone that felt harsh during the morning's rush to avoid falling waste now feels gentle as you prepare for sleep. The coolness that made you shiver during the day's stress now helps you relax. The weight that felt oppressive during the overwhelming noise now feels protective during the blessed silence. Your body understands this change even before your mind processes it. Your muscles release their defensive tension as the cool stone draws away the heat of anxiety and stress. Your breathing slows as the solid presence of the wall reminds you that you're safe, sheltered, held by something stronger than the day's temporary chaos. The stone becomes an anchor that connects your tired body to something permanent and reliable. The cold stone becomes your connection to the earth beneath and the centuries of people who found the same comfort in these walls. Your hand rests where countless other hands have rested, seeking the same relief from the day's struggles. The volcanic rock links you to every generation that lived in these vertical neighbourhoods, each finding their own way to transform discomfort into comfort through the simple passage of time from day to night. Families sleeping in rooms above you and below you rest against the same stone that holds you. Children who played in the narrow closes during the day now curl against walls that offer the same cool comfort your wall provides. The elderly who struggled with the day's sensory assault now find the same relief in stone that seemed harsh hours earlier. This shared experience connects you to your neighbours in ways that daylight chaos never could. The stone holds memories of countless nights when people like you discovered that what hurt during the day could heal during the night. The walls remember the relief of families who found comfort in cold stone after overwhelming heat. They remember the peace of children who stopped crying when cool walls replaced the harsh sensations of daylight hours. They remember generations of people who learned that home isn't just a place, but also a time when stone transforms from burden to blessing. What hurt during the day now heals during the night, proving that home isn't just a place, but also a time when familiar things become sources of comfort rather than stress. The cold stone that challenged you during the overwhelming daylight hours now cradles you towards sleep, showing that the same environment can wound or heal depending on when you encounter it and what you bring to that moment. The volcanic foundation that shaped Edinburgh's surface world also carved out hidden spaces beneath the busy streets, where the stone's protective embrace reached even deeper into the earth itself. You descend the narrow stone stairs into the vaults beneath the Royal Mile, following the same path that Edinburgh's most vulnerable residents took when they needed shelter from the harsh world above. Your feet find each worn step carefully as you move deeper into the earth. The air grows cooler with each step downward. The sounds of the busy street fade behind you until they become distant whispers. These underground chambers offer their own version of protected sleep to those who couldn't afford the cramped tenements rising above their head. Below the main streets, a hidden world of stone chambers provided shelter for families who had nowhere else to go. The vaults stretch out in darkness around you, carved from the same volcanic foundation that supports all of Edinburgh's towering buildings. These spaces were meant for storage when the South Bridge was built in 1788. Merchants planned to keep their goods here, safe and dry beneath the busy streets, but the poor dampness and lack of light made them useless for trade. Instead, they became home to people who needed any kind of roof over their heads. Between 1790 and 1874, these underground spaces housed Edinburgh's forgotten population. Each vault could shelter 20 to 30 people, creating underground neighbourhoods where thousands of residents lived in complete darkness. These spaces were both refuge and prison, offering protection from Scotland's bitter weather, while cutting off light and fresh air completely. You breathe the thick, still air that never moves or refreshes itself. No windows exist down here, no doors open to let in sunshine or evening breezes. The people who lived in these vaults traded the overwhelming sensory assault of the closes above for a different kind of challenge. Complete darkness, stale air. The weight of an entire city presses down on the stone ceiling above their heads. The conditions proved so harsh that new residents faced an average life expectancy of just 6 months. Yet families continued to seek shelter here when surface life became impossible. The vaulted stone ceilings create an even deeper sense of being held by the earth itself, wrapped in layers of rock and history that stretch back to the volcanic formation of Edinburgh's ridge. You run your hand along the curved ceiling and feel how the stone has been shaped to distribute the enormous weight of the buildings, streets, and people above. These arches were built to last. They've supported the daily life of thousands of residents for centuries, creating a hidden foundation that most people never see or think about. Down here, the sounds of the street become muffled whispers, creating a different kind of quiet than the surface world knows. The Gardyloo cries that made people duck in the closes above never reach these depths. The clatter of cart wheels on cobblestones becomes a distant rumble that you feel more than hear. The overwhelming noise that assaulted your senses in the narrow closes transforms into something gentler here. The thick stone absorbs most sounds before they can echo and multiply the way they do in the acoustic chambers above. Families huddle together in spaces carved from the volcanic foundation, finding warmth in shared body heat and shared stories to pass the long hours of complete darkness. Children who played in the closes during daylight hours now curl against their parents in spaces where day and night mean nothing. Adults who worked above ground during the busy hours now gather their families close in the underground chambers, where touch and voice replace sight as the primary ways of staying connected. You feel the dampness seeping through your clothes as you settle against the stone wall. The people who lived here learn to accept this constant moisture as part of their daily life. Their clothes never fully dried. Their bedding stayed damp, but the steady temperature provided relief from the extreme heat of summer and the bitter cold of winter that challenged everyone living in the tenements above. The Earth's natural insulation created a world where seasons mattered less than they did on the surface. The darkness is complete, but it's a darkness that hides rather than threatens, offering invisibility to those who need to disappear from the harsh judgments of the world above. People came to these vaults when they had no other choices, when they couldn't pay rent for rooms above ground, when they needed to escape situations that made surface life dangerous. The complete darkness that might terrify visitors becomes a blessing for those who need to remain unseen. Mothers whisper lullabies to children who will never know what their underground home looks like. Fathers tell stories from memory, their voices carrying clearly in the still air that never moves or changes. Families create their own rhythms in spaces where sunrise and sunset have no meaning. They measure time by the muffled sounds that filter down from the world above. The distant call of street vendors marks the morning. The fading footsteps on the streets overhead signal evening. Even the city's hidden spaces followed the same day-to-night rhythm that governed life in the closes above. When the busy sounds of daytime commerce faded from the streets overhead, the vault dwellers knew that night had arrived in the world they couldn't see. The distant sound of the city gates closing echoed down through layers of stone, reaching even these depths with its message of safety and rest. In the deepest parts of Edinburgh's stone heart, the same cycle of overwhelming day and peaceful night played out for the city's forgotten residents. The relief that came with evening's quiet reached them just as it reached the families in the towering tenements above. Eventually, authorities filled these vaults with rubble in the 19th century to discourage their use. They remained buried and forgotten until excavation in the 1980s revealed their secrets once again. The underground vaults prove that Edinburgh's protective embrace extended even to its hidden corners, sheltering all who needed rest regardless of their ability to pay for comfort or light. But above ground, the city itself was beginning to change as new ideas about light and darkness transformed what night could mean. You stand at the tall window of a New Town house in the 1790s, watching oil lamps flicker to life in the planned streets below, while the old town remains dark behind you. Your hands rest against the cool glass as evening settles over Edinburgh's newest district. The clean lines of the buildings stretch out before you in perfect order, Wide streets flow in straight lines toward distant crescents. Everything here follows a plan, a design that speaks of progress and hope for the future. The introduction of street lighting created two different versions of Edinburgh night. One illuminated and ordered, one still wrapped in medieval darkness. You turn your head slightly and see both worlds at once. Through this window, the new town spreads out like a promise of what cities could become. Behind you, beyond the elegant drawing room, the old town's ancient closes huddle in shadows, just as they have for centuries. This new light promises safety and progress, but it also highlights the divide between those who can afford the modern world and those still living in the old ways. The oil lamps below create pools of warm, golden light that push back the darkness. Each flame burns steadily in its glass housing, protected from Edinburgh's constant wind. The light spills onto wide pavements where well-dressed families can walk safely in the evening hours. You watch a couple stroll arm in arm beneath the gentle glow, their footsteps echoing softly on clean stone. Their voices carry clearly in the open air, no longer trapped and amplified by narrow walls. The woman's dress rustles as they walk. The man's walking stick taps a steady rhythm on the broad pavement. This is a community built on shared light rather than shared survival. Behind you, the old town's closes remain as dark as they've been for centuries. Their residents still depending on locked gates and night watchmen for security. Through the window facing the other direction, you can see the ancient city's jagged skyline. The towering tenements rise like black cliffs against the night sky. No artificial light penetrates those narrow spaces where thousands of families still live in the medieval way. The contrast makes you understand how different your own day has been from theirs. You spent your morning in the new town's wide streets, breathing clean air that moved freely between the planned buildings. You shopped in bright markets, where vendors called their wares without competing with endless echoes. You walked on pavements that stayed clean, past houses with proper drainage and windows that opened to gardens instead of waste-filled closes. You realise you're witnessing the birth of the modern city, where night doesn't have to mean complete darkness and vulnerability. The oil lamps represent something entirely new in human experience. For the first time in Edinburgh's history, artificial light extends the day's activities into evening hours. People can continue their social calls after sunset. Children can play safely in streets that remain visible and protected. The air smells different in the new town too, where the old town's narrow closes trap coal smoke and waste odours. The wide streets here allow fresh air to flow freely. The planned gardens and open squares create pockets of clean air that refresh rather than overwhelm. Even the evening dampness carries pleasant scents of grass and flowers instead of the stale mixture that clings to the medieval closes. Your own body feels different after a day in these open spaces. Your shoulders don't carry the defensive tension that comes from constantly scanning windows for falling waste. Your ears don't ring from overwhelming noise trapped between stone walls. Your breathing stays deep and easy because the air around you stays fresh and clean throughout the day. The oil lamps don't eliminate the need for rest, but they make the transition from day to night gentler and more gradual. Where the old town's residents face an abrupt change from overwhelming daylight chaos to complete darkness, the new town offers something softer. The lamps create a twilight world where evening activities can continue at a peaceful pace. The harsh division between day and night becomes a gentle slope from light to dark. You watch as families emerge from their elegant homes for evening walks. Children who spent their day in clean gardens now enjoy the lamplit streets with their parents. Servants light more lamps in windows throughout the district, creating a constellation of warm light that connects house to house, family to family. The geometric patterns of crescents and squares create orderly neighbourhoods where evening strolls become social rituals. Edinburgh's night is evolving, but the stone walls still offer the same ancient promise of protection and peace. Even in the new town, the buildings rise from the same volcanic foundation that supports the medieval old town. The same cold stone that provides comfort to families in the ancient closes also forms the foundation of these modern houses. The earth beneath both districts holds the same memories, the same strength, the same ability to shelter human dreams. The oil lamps burning below your window represent more than just practical lighting. They mark the beginning of a new relationship between people and darkness. Night no longer has to mean isolation, vulnerability, or complete dependence on natural rhythms. The modern city offers choices that the medieval world never imagined, yet both depend on the same human need for safety, comfort, and rest when darkness falls. This harmonious contrast between old and new Edinburgh would eventually earn recognition as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, celebrated for its unique juxtaposition of two contrasting historic areas. The medieval closes and the Georgian crescents tell the same story of human adaptation, each finding different ways to create sanctuary from the day's challenges. Both worlds, illuminated and dark, continue to shape how people find their way home when evening comes. Today's Edinburgh carries the same ancient rhythm in its stones. Your feet move along the Royal Mile, where tourists snap photos and street performers play music that echoes off volcanic rock walls. The sounds bounce between the same surfaces that once amplified medieval merchants hawking their wares. The narrow closes still trap noise, just like they did centuries ago, but now it's car engines idling and tour groups chattering instead of cartwheels clattering and vendors shouting. The city still follows the pattern of intense sensory input during the day, followed by evening's relief. Your ears ring from traffic that never quite stops. Construction crews work on building renovations, their power tools creating sharp bursts that ricochet off stone surfaces just like the blacksmith's hammer once did. The same walls that made medieval life overwhelming during daylight hours continue their acoustic work, amplifying every modern sound until the day feels like too much to bear. The sources of pressure have changed, but the human need for nighttime sanctuary remains exactly the same. Instead of dodging waste thrown from windows above, you navigate around delivery trucks and dodge cyclists weaving through crowded streets. Your body stays alert, defensive, ready to step aside or change direction at any moment. The stress builds in your shoulders, just like it did for people walking these same streets hundreds of years ago, when different dangers required the same constant vigilance. You climb the familiar stone steps toward home, seeking the same relief that people found here centuries ago. Your hand finds the rough texture of the volcanic rock wall for balance, feeling the same surface that countless others have touched, while making this same journey from day's chaos to night's promise of peace. The stone feels exactly as cold and solid as it did when medieval families climbed these same stairs after surviving their own chaotic days. The ancient walls still hold the cold, still provide the weight and solidity that grounds you after a day of modern urban life. Above you, below you, around you, the same tons of volcanic rock that sheltered medieval families now shelter you. The weight that might have felt oppressive during the day's stress now feels protective as evening approaches. These walls have held firm through centuries of different kinds of chaos, proving their reliability through every generation that has called them home. Your body still carries the day's tension as you near your destination. The noise pollution that replaced medieval acoustic chaos has left its mark on your nervous system. Your breathing stays shallow from air that carries exhaust fumes instead of coal smoke. Your muscles stay clenched from navigating crowds of tourists instead of crowds of medieval residents. The stress feels different in its details, but identical in its impact on your human body that needs the same relief your ancestors sought. Tourist voices fade as evening settles over the city, replaced by the distant hum of traffic that becomes Edinburgh's modern version of background noise. The tour groups that filled the closes during daylight hours retreat to their hotels and restaurants. The street performers pack up their instruments and amplifiers. The shops along the Royal Mile close their doors and turn off their bright signs. The urban assault of modern tourism begins to ebb, just like the medieval chaos once did. You notice how the same stone corridors that trap today's urban noise will soon offer the familiar gift of relative quiet. The closes that echo with car engines and tourist chatter during busy hours will grow still as the city settles into its evening rhythm. The ancient acoustics that worked against you during the day will work for you during the night, creating chambers of peace where your tired senses can finally find relief. The timeless nature of this daily cycle becomes clear as you observe how little the fundamental pattern has changed. People still spend their days dealing with intense sensory input in crowded urban spaces. They still return home exhausted, seeking the same basic human needs for quiet, safety, and rest. The stone walls still provide the same solid foundation for these daily rhythms, connecting you to every generation that has lived within their protective embrace. When modern Edinburgh finally grows quiet, the stone walls offer the same protective embrace they provided for 1,000 years. The traffic noise fades to a distant hum. The construction sounds stop completely. The tourist chatter disappears as visitors retreat indoors. The ancient closes that trapped noise during daylight hours transform into corridors of peace, just as they always have when darkness falls over the city. You're part of an unbroken chain of people who found peace in these same stones, proving that some human needs never change across centuries of different challenges. The volcanic rock that sheltered medieval families from their daily chaos now shelters you from yours. The walls that provided comfort to people fleeing Gardyloo cries now provide comfort to you after escaping traffic noise and crowded streets. Your hand rests against the cold stone one more time, feeling how it connects you to countless others who touch these same surfaces while seeking the same relief from their days. The texture under your palm tells the story of human endurance, of people finding ways to survive urban chaos in every era. The weight of the stone above provides the same sense of being held safely that it has offered to tired families for generations. The ancient heart of Edinburgh continues beating with the same rhythm that has sustained the city through centuries of change. The stone walls remember every generation that found shelter within their embrace. They hold the stories of medieval residents and modern families alike, all carrying the same fundamental human longing for sanctuary when darkness falls. The stones beneath your feet connect you to this endless cycle of seeking rest after chaos. Tonight, as you rest in your own bed, you carry the same human need for relief that shaped Edinburgh's nights across the centuries. Your body seeks the familiar transition from day's pressure to night's release. The weight that pressed on your shoulders during busy hours lifts as darkness brings its ancient gift of peace. Whether you're surrounded by ancient stone or modern walls, the rhythm remains unchanged. You breathe deeper as evening settles around you. Let yourself feel connected to all the people who found peace in the darkness before you. The need for sanctuary is timeless and universal, reaching across every generation that has ever closed their eyes and trusted the night to heal what the day had wounded. Thank you for drifting through the night with me. If you found comfort here, tap subscribe and like the video. It helps others find a place to rest too.